culvert replacement, did you cover that in your report?
No, I was waiting
Yeah, I
until
saw
we
it
got
on
there.
there, but I didn't recall your comments.
I also, I did walk through this on my sheet there, but to summarize, I met before the last board meeting, I met with Mr. Jerry Habenak, he's the owner at 975 Wiggum Road, and he showed me where his driveway apron was starting to fail. There's a sinkhole above the existing culverts. He's got a rather unusual culvert set up. He's got two 24-inch diameter culverts. The ditch in front of his house carries an unusual amount of flow. There's a very large drainage area that comes through there. So, and apparently it's not clear to me just what exactly is causing the sinkhole, but in any event, the part of the driveway was failing, and Mr. Habenak requested that the village assist with the repair or replacement there. What I told Mr. Habenak at the time is what I would normally tell any resident is that the village doesn't have typically a mechanism in place to go and perform repairs on private driveways, with the exception that we normally do on a village street during the course of a village project. If we're resurfacing or reconstructing the streets, like any other agency would do, we typically replace at least a portion of the bituminous driveway as part of that work. Looking at what Mr. Habenak's driveway looked like, I suggested that it's perhaps we resurfaced Wiggum Road back in 2004. It seemed to me that we could have gone farther in the apron when we did that work, and it was reasonable to me that since we had a contractor in town doing this year's program, that I could send that contractor over to this driveway and do the work that perhaps we should have done when we resurfaced the road in 2004. But what I pointed out was that if the problem were that the culverts beneath had failed, that would be beyond the scope of what the village would normally do. And we would find ourselves, at that point, I would have to stop on behalf of the village, and that it would be Mr. Habenak's responsibility to repair or replace the culverts as necessary. Mr. Habenak pointed out, as I mentioned before, that he thought it was reasonable to give different consideration to his driveway there, given the relatively unusual nature. Now, most of you there that have driveway culverts, you don't have anything anywhere near as big as two-foot diameter pipes carrying your driveway. It is a fairly substantial expense for an individual homeowner to deal with, and Mr. Habenak felt that it would be that it at least deserved consideration by the village to consider coming in and taking responsibility for the culvert repairs and replacements if they're necessary. That I felt was well beyond my authority to make a decision on, so I asked Mr. Habenak to come to our staff meeting last Tuesday where we could discuss it. And the direction that I got from staff was to bring the matter here before the board for consideration to see if the board felt that it was something reasonable for us to proceed with as a village project. I've gotten a couple of estimates in just on the pipe replacement. I'm still waiting on numbers to do the landscape restoration and such that would have to be done. But I would put it right around maybe a $13,000 project to replace these culverts. I did ask Mr. Habenak to come along here to the board meeting tonight. I think that certainly if the board has questions, or it's only fair and reasonable that he could present to the board his side of this for consideration. So I think that's the general outline of what my direction from staff was to bring here to the board.
And was there any cause by the village to create the situation?
No, I don't think that the village took any particular actions that created the situation either. There's certainly no activity that the village engaged in, particularly the damage to the driveway.
But Pat, as I understand it, it's a natural water flow that is running, cascading into his area, which is on a public road.
It's everything we're talking about here is within the right of way of my recommendation would be, I would have two recommendations. That if the board considers that we ought to step back from the policy that I've always understood, that simply the driveway culvert are private property and not the village's responsibility, again with the exception of normal resurface. That if we were to take different direction there, one, that we try to establish some threshold or some boundaries, unless the board determines that all culverts on village streets are within the village's responsibility. In other words, if the village determines that we should replace these culverts, I'd like some direction as to, if somebody else has a single 24 or 218s, or where we draw that line. And the only other suggestion or recommendation I would have is, if the board authorizes me to do the pavement work, I'd like to have the authorization to repair or replace the culverts. I don't want to get in there, open this thing up, and realize the culverts are bad, and be stuck. So, but the recommendation, there's more of a policy issue here than there is an engineering recommendation.
Let me just, if I can, Bill, just clarify at least one point. I was talking to Pat about this after the staff meeting, because for a while I thought that the difference would turn on whether it was a private or village street. And Pat said no, that the policy that he's been observing was we don't deal with driveways or culverts, whether it's a village street or a private street, because in effect the bridging over the village right-of-way is up to the private owner. And so that would be the case whether it was a village street or a private street. In some fairness to Mr. Habenack's position, he thinks that the flow of water that he's having to deal with, and I'll let him address this, is accelerated over the last 20 or 30 years. And while he can't say that, I would not say that the village is responsible for it, I think he would say that the cumulative impact of many decisions with regard to construction and size of homes and impervious surface, the amount of water where it has no place in this instance to go but in front of his house, has reached the point where he's now dealing with a volume of water that's very unusual. Now, maybe at that point,
Pat, is this similarly unusual for the other homes on Wiggum?
I'm sorry?
Is it part of the other driveways on Wiggum in similar position? And do
Not exactly.
they all have 224?
No. I did a little research on what culvert inventory we have here. I found one other location in the village where there was a private driveway with two 24-inch culverts. That's over on Clendenin. So this is a unique situation in any of the village right-of-way. But certainly if you travel Port Line Road, Saunders Road, there, or north on Wiggum, there are quite a few installations. Actually wrote it down here. Several, individual 24-inch culverts on Wiggum, Port Line. Ravinia Green on Saunders has 24-inch culverts. And there's probably about half a dozen much larger culvert installations, typically for properties that are crossing Thorngate Creek. Mayor Kaplan's house is an example, but those clearly are private as well. So to put it in context, it is unique in certain circumstances as far as being on a village street. There's no private driveway culvert on a village street that's larger than what Mr. Habenack has in front of his house.
Is it likely that we have other situations of this nature?
Certainly, it's highly probable that other driveway aprons are going to fail, culverts are going to fail. It just won't be two 24-inch pipes.